So we're in the season of Advent. If you didn't grow up in a church, or if you didn't grow up in a church that did Advent, Advent means the arrival of someone or something notable. The person is Jesus, all right? We know. Every week we'll light a candle. We're going to celebrate what each of them represent. Reflect on what Jesus coming to earth meant for humanity. Last week we lit the first candle, which represents hope. The hope found in the prophesied coming of the Messiah. The hope that the people felt while being oppressed and unsure about what their future would hold, not only for them, but for their children and their children's children. That even though their circumstances were never great, that one day the Messiah would come and deliver them from every evil. And though we know who that promised Messiah is, when we light this candle, we join in with them for the day that we stand before Jesus in eternity in true freedom. For those of you who weren't here last week, this is catching you up to speed. This is what we talked about last week. That's candle number 1. It's pre-lit. Tonight we're going to talk about the theme of looking back and looking forward. Corey touched on that throughout her poem, looking back as Mary. I want us to try to put ourselves in the mindset and the shoes of Mary and Joseph. The excitement and the expectation that they must have felt waiting for Jesus' arrival. As Mary's pregnant belly grows, and they're recalling the scripture that was written about their baby. Imagine the dots in their head, all of a sudden connecting. They're like, wait a second. Those scriptures that we had to memorize as kids are about our baby. Maybe looking back, they thought about the times where they heard those passages for the first time. Or maybe looking back, they're thinking to themselves, you know what? I wish I paid more attention to the rabbi because then I might know a couple different things the finer points of who this king is going to be that we're going to give birth to. I should have paid attention. We're going to read one of those passages now that Mary and Joseph most likely would have known. They probably recited it to each other as they traveled to Bethlehem for the census. I imagine I don't have to imagine this. Traveling to Bethlehem took a long time, all right? They weren't flying in a plane. They're walking. Mary's on a donkey. At least that's how it's depicted in movies and stuff. They got a lot of time to pass. So I imagine what's happening is they're walking day after day after day, and Joseph's like, oh, Mary, you remember that one from Isaiah? Remember that passage from Isaiah? I remember the first half. You think that one's about him too? And then she's obviously the better student. She's like, yeah. And they talk about that passage. Maybe it's one they learned when they were kids and they heard a bunch of times in a service just like this. And now they know, as Mary carries the baby in her belly, that those passages were written about this baby. So let's read it. Isaiah 9, 6-7. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the greatness of his government and peace, there will be no end. He will reign on David's throne and over his kingdom, establishing and upholding it with justice and righteousness from that time on and forever. The zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this. When my wife was pregnant with our kids, every single time, every day, she would sing to her belly, "You are my sunshine," which seems weird if you haven't spent a lot of time around pregnant ladies, or if you haven't read any pregnancy books. But whenever she'd have a friend over, they would come up like this, ah! And they'd grab her belly, manipulating it. And they're like, you're so cute. I can't wait till you grow up. I have so many plans for you. They're talking to the baby like the baby can hear them. Also, strangers will do that too. For some reason, they feel like they have permission to touch pregnant ladies' bellies. Don't be that person, all right? I'm just letting you know. Ask permission. Baby books recommend dads read to their unborn babies in the womb. Read books to get used to their voice. Because babies will pick up your accent in the womb. It's crazy. Looking at this passage, I wonder if this came to Mary's mind while she recalled this prophecy in Isaiah. Because she knew that her baby was the Son of God. Was she ever recited this to Jesus in the womb? Over and over again, the same way that parents like Bree and I recited stuff to our kids, singing "You Are My Sunshine," being like, I can't wait till you grow up and we're gonna wrestle. You're gonna be so big. It's gonna be a good time. I wonder if she said to her belly over and over again, you are the wonderful counselor. You are the mighty God. You are the Prince of Peace. When you grow up and you get big, you're going to reign on the throne of David forever. Mary, after she found out she was pregnant, she went and hung out with her cousin Elizabeth because she was pregnant too. But Mary was way more excited. She goes to Elizabeth's house and she puts on a musical for Elizabeth. She sings a song of praise. You'll find it in Luke 1 if you want to go read it. And in her song of praise, she references the book of Habakkuk, Isaiah, and Psalms in reference to who this baby was going to be. So she knew exactly who she was pregnant with. So it's not too far-fetched to imagine she probably recalled quite a few scriptures as she walked to Bethlehem. We're going to pick up where we left off in our Christmas story last week with Luke 2, 1 through 7. In those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. This was the first census that took place while Quirinius was governor of Syria. And everyone went to their own town to register. So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him, and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born. She gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in cloths and placed him in a manger because there was no guest room available for them. So today we're going to light the second candle of Advent that represents peace. Peace that came after a long, anxiety-inducing, stressful journey. Mary had to travel super far, very pregnant. Even now, today, they say to pregnant ladies, don't fly on a plane. And all they're doing is sitting there, right? Think about the stress that would put you through. You're like, is it okay for me to be jostling around on a donkey? And then I'm just letting you know, pregnant ladies, they don't want to sit all day, right? Especially on a donkey, I'm sure. My wife never sat on a donkey while she was pregnant. She probably wouldn't want to go up there. It's dangerous, Going through harsh terrain, would the baby even survive being jostled around that much? Then the anxiety around just thinking about, man, is Mary going to survive the birth? There's nothing in the prophecy is about the mom making it. Is the baby going to survive the birth? What would happen to her if something happened to the baby? Would God be upset? Lots of things to be stressed about. Lots of things to be anxious about. But then think about when Jesus finally came, he was birthed, that peace that would wash over Mary and Joseph, just be like, we made it. We made it, and he's alive, and he's healthy, and Mary's alive and healthy too. Jesus, the promised and long-expected Messiah, has been born. That's the peace that this candle represents. So on the topic of looking back and looking forward, I imagine Mary looking back on all the memories of seasons past as she holds her new baby. There wasn't Christmas for Mary growing up. So what was it? What do you think? What was the thing that she looked forward to about this season? Bethlehem and all of Judea are in an arid climate. So that means November through May, they have the rainy season. And the rest of the year, it's this hot, super dry season. They have two seasons. So it wasn't wintertime for her. So maybe when it started to rain, looking back for Mary, she'd be like, oh yeah, I love the rain. Kind of like we love snow in wintertime. Was that her version of snow? When we see snow, we're like, time for Christmas music and hot chocolate. What was it that she was nostalgic for when she looked back over her life? Was there some sort of food that her family would make or some sort of like family tradition they would do? Would they run out in the rain? Whatever it was that she was nostalgic for, she looked back. Her rainy seasons would never be the same going forward. Looking forward for the rest of her life, the rainy season would always mark the birth of her son, the promised one, the miracle baby who almost completely ruined her life with her new marriage on the horizon, just by him existing. Every rainy season from now on would herald the birthday of her miracle boy. I'm sure she looked forward with excitement for all the birthdays to come. What would Jesus be like next rainy season? Firstborns, they're overachievers. Maybe he'd be walking at this point. Maybe for a 1-year birthday, make it a barn theme, right? He's born in a stable. That'd be fun, right? Enough time has passed. You're over how awful that was. You're like, yeah, that was a fun time. Remember that? Yeah, good birthday in a stable, barn party. Looking forward, she knew this miracle baby would have the throne of David, that his kingdom would endure forever, but she had no idea how he was going to accomplish all that. She didn't know if he'd be this old man sitting on a throne. I'm sure she didn't expect to outlive her son because most parents don't. She knew he was God in the flesh. So what did that mean for her family? I'm sure it was exciting. Think about being pregnant with God. Thinking about your future. Normal babies, you're laying there at night, you're like, man, is he gonna like sports? I hope so. I like sports. She's probably thinking oh my goodness, I've seen my friends have normal babies and I'm pregnant with God. What does that mean? What's that mean for me? What's that mean for my family? What's that mean for our future? It's exciting though. All the different hopes and dreams she would have for Jesus, plus a whole bunch of extras because no one's ever had a baby like this before. This weekend, on Friday actually, we decorated my house for Christmas inside. That means we went and pulled out the fake tree from the basement and all the decorations and ornaments. It's a fake tree because I'm allergic, all right? My kids have to suffer through not smelling like pine. They get to smell dust. My kids love the ornaments, and I have a ton of them. The reason being is because every year for my whole life, my grandma has given me these hand-carved little wooden nutcracker soldiers. They spend more time off the trees than on the tree. Because my kids, they put them on for a second. They're like, I like this one. And they're playing with it, and they break them. They're handmade, so that we have a box full of parts, right? Just leave them on the tree, but they're fun. And they have the year written on the bottom and my name. And the kids come to me, they're like, what did you get this year? 1995. I'm like, I don't know. Some Christmases I remember. Some of them are notable, but they want to know and look back with me over my Christmases and just hear fun stories. So I'll tell them about the time, when I grew up, every year we would train for our lip syncing competition. Our whole family would get together and we would train week upon week. It might have just been my family, but we trained. My mom drilled us in lip syncing. And my grandpa couldn't grasp the idea of lip syncing. So everybody would be lip syncing like normal, and then he'd get up there and just sing full volume, and we would all laugh at him. And my kids think it's funny. So it's like, yeah, it's a good story to tell. Yeah, you guys get the whole point. So my kids love looking back at what Christmas meant to me at the time and what got me excited. But even more than looking back, my kids love looking forward at the excitement of the gifts they're gonna get. They wanna know what family traditions we're gonna do this year. They wanna take guesses at what gifts they're gonna get. And it's contagious. I get so excited about giving my kids gifts. Every single year that I've been a parent, that excitement has grown. where I have a hard time sleeping going into Christmas morning. This last year, every year for like the past couple of years, because it's ramped up, I get so excited about my kids opening gifts, I wake up before everybody else in the house. This last year, I woke up at like 4 a.m. I beat all my kids to being awake. Not with my hands. So, it happens. Okay, anyways, I was the first one awake. My kids lost. And if you know my kids, it's really impressive. They wake up super early. They're very early people. When we look back on our lives, not just the fond memories, we may feel nostalgic for the way that things were. But we also, when we look back, maybe feel regret or shame. Or maybe we feel pain when we look back or sadness. If we know now what we knew, if we knew then what we know now, maybe we would have done something different. Maybe we would have avoided certain people or circumstances or situations for our betterment. Maybe if we knew this was the last time we were going to be at this place with this person, we would have spoken to them nicer. We would have said something, what they really mean to us. Feeling like we could do it all over again, like we would do stuff differently. Looking back can be hard. But we can also look back at how Jesus changed everything for us. Just like Mary, whose rainy seasons would never be the same after Jesus was born. Our lives when we met Jesus would never be the same either. We can look back at our lives and see how the decisions we were making were leading to destruction. That no matter how hard we tried, we always came up feeling empty. No matter how much success we had, the goals we achieved, the dreams we accomplished, and still we had a gaping hole in our lives until we met Jesus. As Christ followers, we could look back at our past and what Jesus saved us from. And we can look forward to his continued work in our lives. That he's going to save us from the day-to-day things that are trying to steal our peace. Even when they seem overwhelming and the anxieties of the future, his goodness is going to increase in the face of those hardships, in that anxiety, in that stress. We know that he's going to come again when we look ahead. He's going to come again as the royal Prince of Peace and make all things new. Unlike Mary as a new mother, dreaming of what her baby was going to be like and what he would accomplish, when we look forward, we already know what the complete work of Christ looks like. That the choices we've made that have hurt ourselves, the way we've hurt other people, the things that we've said and done that separate us from God and that should have us separated from God for all eternity, that instead Jesus bore the penalty for our sins on the cross. And then we have a future ahead of us only because of his sacrifice for us. Now we get to look forward to the promises Jesus has for us. Not just looking at how Jesus is going to come through for us in our current situation or difficulty, but looking ahead to the throne room, standing in the throne room of God, spending eternity in true freedom, in true goodness, in true peace, in true joy, in true love. And that's a future that will make me lose sleep if I think about it. Laying in bed. What does true joy and true peace even look like? I don't know. When I was in high school, we were at a family party with my cousins. My brother was in college. He told us a story, and I'd never had this happen before. He told us the story of babysitting my younger cousin who was there. And when my cousin was like, 8, 9 years old, whatever, my brother was babysitting him at my parents' house. And my parents have this, they would get, my dad had a friend who was an arborer and who would just dump wood chips in our yard and make these giant piles. My dad would be like, go shovel those wood chips again. And that was like the worst. I hated it. I had to do it all the time. Every weekend, shoveling wood chips. And he would put the wood chips in a giant pile. This thing is like, 6, 7 feet high, next to this hill that led to the road. And my cousin, while my brother was babysitting, decided to sprint down one hill, up the wood pile, and jump off of the wood chip pile down the hill where my brother and I tried to push most of the wood chips. He landed face down and slid down the steep wood chip hill, and my brother saw his paycheck disappear, right? And so he runs down. He's like, Matt, are you okay? And Matt looked up, and he smiled, and he had wood chips all in his teeth. When my brother told that story, I had never laughed this hard in my life. I didn't know it was possible. At this point, I had chuckled at things, but I'd never truly laughed. I laughed so hard, I was just crying uncontrollably. I was like, when I tried to breathe in, you know what I'm talking about? And I was like, oh, it hurts so bad, it's so funny. We were like, everybody, come over here, you gotta hear the story. And then we would get like 3 words of the story, and we would all just die laughing. It was the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life. That is one of the most true, joyful experiences I've ever had. It was so unbelievably fun. It was such a good time, such a good story. I couldn't believe that something could be that funny. It took me years to be able to tell that story without dying. Seriously, years. That is just barely registering on the joy scale. Imagine what true joy would feel like. I don't think our bodies, as they are right now, could handle it. I think we'd explode or implode. Imagine what true peace would feel like. Without Jesus, we look back and we can feel shame and regret over the choices we made, with no hope of anything ever getting better, no redemption. Without Jesus, looking forward with peace is impossible. Looking forward without Jesus, all we could do is wish for things. And then hope that our health hangs on long enough for us to see those wishes come to fruition. That no accidents would happen along the way, and that we'd get everything we wished for in our future in life until we disappear. With Jesus, we can look back and we can look forward with peace because we know He has already won the victory over our past and promises us a future where the Prince of Peace will walk by our sides until we stand before God in the throne room of grace. So after we finished decorating my house on Friday, we were like, let's do a family movie. Check out what like the new Christmas movies are. We found this movie called That Christmas. We decided to watch it. And right at the beginning of the movie, there's this quote. And I was like, that's a great quote. So from the theologian called That Christmas, I'm going to read you this quote. The narrator of the movie, I'm not sure if it was Santa or not, says this. Christmas is an emotion multiplier. If you're feeling lonely or joyful, it will only intensify as the season approaches. I was like, wow, it's deep for a kids' movie. With that in mind, if you're feeling a lack of peace, maybe you've been on a journey this year like Mary, unsure of if her or her baby were going to survive their journey. The harsh terrain, unsure of what life would even look like when they arrive at the destination. Would they be healthy when they arrived? If that's what your life has been like, if that's what your year has been like, if it's been amping up constantly with a feeling of no peace, give yourself in this moment to Jesus. Give it to Jesus, whatever it is that is trying to take away your peace, so you can have the same experience as Mary, being washed over with relief and peace when Jesus finally comes. Jesus finally came out as a healthy baby. Once you give it to Jesus, you'll have the ability to look back on the journey, not with regret or shame, but with thankfulness for Jesus arriving and looking forward on how He'll continue to bring peace in this season at Christmas and the days to come. So what I want you to do now is I want you to close your eyes. I want you to actually think about this. If our eyes are open, sometimes it's really easy to get distracted. You guys are all looking at my mustache or something. So I want you to have your eyes closed. And I want you to ask yourself these questions. What has been stealing your peace? Maybe you've given your life to Jesus, but you have this anxiety or stress that you haven't let him have yet. What's stealing your peace? This might not apply to everybody, but when you look forward to Christmas, time with or without family, what is amplifying your loss of peace? That could be a who too. Who is amplifying your loss of peace? What's been stealing your peace? I want you to visualize this in your head with your eyes closed still. What we've been saying this whole time is that Jesus is here. He's not some future promise. He's right here. He's already been born. Jesus is here. He's right in front of you. Let the Prince of Peace take away your anxieties. In your mind, if it helps, just imagine handing it over to him. He has peace that he will freely give. He'll exchange it for your lack of peace, or he'll even just add peace to your peace if you already have peace. He's very generous. He'll gladly share it with you. Jesus, as the Christmas season approaches, is an emotion multiplier. Whether we're feeling isolated or alone or joyful for all the things that are to come, God, I pray that no matter what, that we would just lean into you and give you what is rightly yours. You died on the cross to take all of our anxieties away. I pray that you'd give us the boldness to give them to you. God, I pray for the courage to give you over those things. Maybe they're even family members that are stealing our peace. Those relationships, God. We give them over to you. Jesus, I pray a blessing over all these people here, that the Prince of Peace would be the king of their heart, that they would go about their days, leave this place, go about their days and weeks, just bearing the Prince of Peace everywhere they go, so that whenever they walk into a room, any conversation, that these people would just bring your presence and a sense of peace, not only for the people they encounter, but for themselves. Would you bless them that way? We're thankful for you, God. Thank you for coming to earth and not leaving us here to deal with all the stress and anxiety on our own. Thank you for walking us yourself into the throne room of grace. In your name, amen.